It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Hi, friends, and glad you're with us. Some analysts say the warning signs are out there for another recession. Are your finances ready for that? Some good questions we put to you and Watts of Springfield's Wealth Care Corporation in this Sunday, hot off the press edition of Watts on Wealth. Hi, this is your host, Ralph Hipp. Barry is standing by, ready to hear from you at 417-200-3500. Right, Barry? And how are things around 417 land all around the Ozarks this weekend?
Well, Ralph, things are going well here, and I think things are probably going fairly well in 417 economically, maybe compared to even to the rest of the country. You know, one of the wonderful things about our part of the world is we are so well diversified. Springfield is not a company town. There are lots of places and ways to make a living here. It's really small business driven. And so we've got a lot to go for us in Springfield that other places don't have. You know, for example, towns that are so dependent on a military base or something of that nature. We just don't have that kind of problem here in Springfield. So I think things are going well in this particular market. Hey, I did see something news-wise that I thought was interesting.
What's that?
Hammond's Tower. Downtown, you know, the tallest building in Springfield.
Right.
Hammond's Tower and the nearby John Q. Hammond's building are maybe going to be renovated. And that's good news. Those buildings have gotten some age on them. They were built in the 80s. Can you believe those things have been here 40 years? My goodness.
Yeah, when I was at KSPR, and that was the familiar landmark in that part of town, and now they have the stadium and all in there. But Hammond's Tower, said, oh, there it is, right? So they're going to redo it, but it was there. It was solid in 1987 when I first moved to Springfield, so they got to redo it.
You know, it's interesting when you say it's a landmark because on our TV show, Watts on Wealth, the TV show over on KY3, when does that play? I think Sunday mornings at 6:30 is our primary time for that.
And
show.
Sometimes at like middle of the night, middle of the week, middle of the night. Yeah,
but
like
our show actually starts with a B-roll footage that has Hammond's Tower in the footage.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, I used to love going to the Tower Club downtown to eat, which is top floor of the Hammond's Tower. It's beautiful. And of course, that folded a long time ago. And so that whole thing really, from the time John Q was about 65 on, it began to decline. And it would be really good if some local people would get behind that and bring some life back into it. And the news is that there are some developers who are about to do that. But it's a hard time to be developing. I happen to know because I'm personally looking for a new office building. Our staff has grown so large that we are needing to expand. And it's hard to find a place to build. It's hard to find a place to move to. And if you can do it, the economy makes it hard to finance those projects. In fact, here's a little interesting economic news. I heard the CEO of Applebee's this week talking about the people who come to his restaurant. And he said 45% of the people who come to Applebee's to eat make less than $50,000 a year. And he said they're showing up less to eat because of the impact of inflation. So when we talk about recession and the possibility it could be on the horizon, that's a harbinger, perhaps, of things to come. Just something to kind of keep in mind. So all kinds of news, different things to think about there, whether you want to focus on the great economy in Springfield, the fact they're just going to make Hammond's Tower pretty once again. Any of those are interesting topics for today.
And I also could not fail to mention Johnny Morris donating 1,200 acres of his land. Did you see that news? He's going to create this Thunder Ridge Nature Arena around Branson, and that is huge. The vistas and the scenery is going to be spectacular. Chris Stapleton's going to perform there over the summer. So Johnny Morris, he's always thinking of that next big thing. So that's going to be a huge thing for Branson and all around the Ozarks, that Thunder Ridge Nature Arena. But I don't know if he's leasing any office space out that way for you, Barry.
Well, actually, Ralph, you just gave away your secret sauce. So Thunder Ridge, yeah, it's here. In fact, Garth Brooks played Thunder Ridge last year. And it's a big honking development right down there on the lake next to Big Cedar. I haven't actually been out to Thunder Ridge because I don't like going to parties with 50,000 of my best friends. It's just not my kind of event. But anyway, that's just an interesting thing that's going on. God bless Johnny Morris. He's done a lot for the Ozarks. It always offends me when I hear people mocking him, and the millionaire, and talking derisively about him, it's a good thing. I said millionaire. He's a billionaire.
He's a billionaire.
It's a good thing to have a billionaire in your midst. And he has been a great blessing to the Ozarks and has done things for us that nobody else would have or could have done. And I'm thrilled he's here. So don't be knocking Johnny in my earshot, because I won't tolerate that.
Well, like I said, over the summertime, look for big things over there. But some analysts say on a recession, Barry, we're not out of the woods on this, is kind of where I'm going with this. We're not out of the woods on our economy. And getting to some of our big questions on the show this weekend, how seriously do we want to take some of these economic predictions that are out there?
Well, if you have two economists in a room, you have three opinions. So I think that's the first thing to think about. At the same time, I don't think you can just toss it out and say, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it. I think those are real things, and economic opinions are based on, in most cases, decent science, mathematical and economic science. But here's the problem. If you just listen to the news, and some people just sit home all day and watch Fox News, and it eats their lunch, and it's the reason they lose their mind and go crazy and their friends don't like to hang out with them, is because all they can talk about is the latest bit of scandal that they heard on Fox News. If you just ingest nothing but that, it'll make you sick. And so what I would encourage you to do is don't focus on those things. Leave the focusing to us. Now, our job is to focus on the economic news, to sort through it, throw away the bones and keep the meat, and figure out what is applicable for our clients. And that's something we try to do. Now, ultimately, Ralph, while we focus on those things and try to help people make good decisions, here's the way Barry looks at it. I can't control all that. And really, I'm a citizen of another kingdom. I'm just passing through here. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. This isn't my final destination. And so we just do the best we can while we're here with what we have now. And we leave the rest of it into God's hands, committed to the future in a better place. But while we're here, we do work on protecting people from taxes, protecting them against declining stock markets, because those will come again at a certain point. And we make sure that their income is as safe as possible to get them to age 100. And if we've done those things, I think we've all done what we need to do. So let's go to Thunder Ridge and listen to a great concert.
Sounds great. Now, to hear from Barry Watts, and that's more of a one-on-one thing, not 50,000. I hope we have 50,000 people listening to our radio show. That'd be awesome. If just a one-on-one, get with Barry at the Wealth Care Corporation, and in 417 land, it's 200-3500, 417-200-3500. I'm Ralph Hipp along with Barry Watts, and the show is Watts on Wealth. Barry, from what you're hearing from clients and people all around the Ozarks, what are we worried about right now?
Well, everybody's got inflation on their mind. That's why they're not going to Applebee's quite so much. I think the election is on people's mind.
Yes.
And of course, we always have Trump news. Oh, heavens. I don't know how that's going to go down.
It's both of them every day. It's Biden and Trump every day.
Well, I think Trump's going to be convicted. I think that was already decided a long time ago. Now, I think that'll be worked out through appeal probably. But that's a bad thing. I just hope he can withstand it. And of course, I hope we have a Trump election. Not because I don't think that Trump couldn't improve his humanity a bit, but because between the two of them, I think he's definitely, unquestionably the better choice. And so we like his policies economically and so forth. The big concern, though, for most people, even beyond the elections and who's president and the inflation going on, are taxes. That's a big, big topic. And fortunately, we have a great strategy for dealing with increasing taxes. And we play that out for our clients every day here at the Wealth Care Corporation. It's something you should have on your mind, is about how you can reduce your taxes in retirement. Because if you don't pay attention, you're going to be paying a lot more in taxes than you ever anticipated.
Right. Barry can go through some strategies with you of the elimination of taxes or huge reduction of taxes. And that's one of the main reasons that we're on the show every weekend. For those who are still working, Barry, but they're getting close to retirement age, how do you talk to them? What are the issues for them of making sure they're ready? If it does happen around Springfield once in a while, they're forced into an early retirement.
Well, it certainly can happen. I had a client in the office just this week. In fact, she works for a company that's kind of technology related. She makes about $400,000 a year. And she's expecting a big recapitalization of her company that'll be about $2 million for her when that time comes. But that's not guaranteed. And the kind of job she works in, they could walk in tomorrow and say, you're done. Hit the road. And we talked about that in the office this week, about having a plan to deal with that. And so I think you should be thinking about those things. And the way you develop your plan is you start running your numbers now. We call it a retirement income plan to age 100. And so what happens is if you're 50 years old, we do a retirement income plan for you, or 55 or 60 or whatever. And we have those on file. And then if you call us someday and say, hey, just lost my job, can I go ahead and retire now? Well, we can rerun the numbers because we've already got it on file, and we can quickly do an update for you. We had a client who did that just this week. He's been with us a long time, planning on retiring. He was here last year, and he said, could I retire on $40,000 a year? We did the math and said, yep, you can. Well, he's closer, 1 year closer to retirement than this week, because he's about to do it in the next 3 months or so. He said, would you mind doing a little work for me and figuring out, could I have $50,000 a year in retirement? And then would you run it at $60,000 too? And the good news for him is we ran him at $60,000 a year in retirement. And the answer is yes, he will have income to last him all the way to age 100. And so he is able to then breathe a sigh of relief and move toward his retirement date with a great sense of confidence. And that's what we want our clients to have, is confidence as they move toward retirement. And you can't have confidence if you don't know the numbers. And perhaps you can't figure the numbers out because that's not what you do every day. It's all we do, is we figure retirement confidence numbers every day and then either tell you be confident or maybe you should work a little longer. But we can give you numbers that you can count on. And that's what we contribute to the world of our clients here at the Wealth Care Corporation.
Okie dokie. And that number again, as we head into our first break here, it's 417-200-3500. Call Barry Watts. You can leave a message today. You can text the word visit to that number. As you're listening to Watts on Wealth, the radio home of our expert retirement plan designer, J. Barry Watts of Springfield's Wealth Care Corporation. We're going to say a lot of nice things about Barry during this commercial break, and we'll be back with more right after this. Don't go away.
Retirement planning doesn't have to be complicated. Barry Watts can help you simplify it with his kit. In it, you'll find a copy of his retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, income, and more. To get your wealth care kit, text KIT to 417-200-3500. That's KIT to 417-200-3500.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services are provided by Wealth Care Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk.
Looking to see what Barry Watts can do for you? Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in. Ralph Hipp along with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. You are listening to the Watts on Wealth radio show. I would remind you, if you'd love to see what Barry looks like, I think a lot of people know you, Barry. They know what you look like. If you want to see him on TV, KY3. We're on several times a week, and a whole half-hour discussion to go along with our hour show here on the radio. Glad you're with us, TV or radio, over there on KY3. Barry, continuing our discussion, we're talking about recessions and the economy, and if it takes a nosedive, we can't control what kind of an economy we'll retire into. But how do you help people all around Springfield get ready for their retirement so the money stays preserved if the economy goes down in the dumper? How do you help us out with that?
Ralph, you often hear us talk about our retirement income plans. And one of the fun things about a retirement income plan is we can do what we call shock testing it or stress testing it. So we can actually, through our software, lay out your retirement income plan, say, looks pretty good. And then we can say, but what happens if everything goes in the dumper? and we can punch the button and put shock on that retirement income plan and then say, oh, does that cause it to fail or does it still work? So that's a helpful tool. Here's one of the things that I believe. Everybody needs a portion of their retirement principal protected so that no matter what happens to the economy or the stock market, it doesn't go down in value. A portion needs to be protected. Now, you might say, well, how much? Well, it depends. It's different for everyone, but we've got a process for helping people ferret out exactly how much of their principal they would like to keep protected. And for the portion that is not protected, meaning it still has the opportunity to fluctuate with the markets, we want to buffer it so that instead of going as high as it can go and as low as it can go, we instead come to that middle ground and just see performance there in the middle ground. I liken it to this, Ralph. If you don't dig a hole with negative numbers, you don't have to spend any time climbing out of the hole.
Okay.
So we try to buffer those portfolios so that people aren't digging a hole in bad markets and they don't have to climb out of the hole. And one of the other things that I think is really helpful is you just divide your retirement money, however much of it you've got saved, into 3 different buckets. A now bucket that you're going to spend in the next year, a soon bucket that you're going to spend somewhere between years 2 and 4 or something like that, and a later bucket for 5 years and after. And we obviously invest those buckets differently so that you never have to worry about this year's money being shocked by economic news. And if your later bucket is shocked by the economy to some degree, well, there's time for that to recover and work itself out. So I think that now, soon, and later approach is really helpful as well.
So remember the buckets. Barry, also, when you're talking about the shock therapy, I was thinking about when they have a heart attack, they put the paddles on your chest and hit the shock and get that beat going. Is it kind of like that? It's like the paddles on a defibrillator, and you can shock it and keep it going and make sure that it's healthy. Is it like that?
Actually, no, Ralph, it's not like that at all. We don't want to put a shock on your heart. What we want to do is think of it more as a stress test. It's like before you need the paddles being shocked to your heart, you may go in and have a stress test where you get on the treadmill and you run really hard and they try to get your heart to do flip-flops or whatever it is. Well, we can make your portfolio run really hard and then put it into a bad economic environment, and we see, does it respond fine or does it have a little flip-flop here and there? That's the way we test a portfolio. So no paddles. We don't want to get that far.
No, but putting on the little sensors and stress test on the treadmill, I like that. It's a lot better. We did a segment recently of that old saying, plan for the worst and hope for the best. And can you discuss with us, how do we hope for the best but get ready for the worst case scenario with this economy we have right now?
Well, Ralph, I think we have to stay positive. I saw a quote this week from Kevin Kelly. He's a technologist, and he said, we should be optimistic, not because our problems are smaller than we thought, but because our capacity to solve them is larger than we thought. One of the most rewarding parts of my work is when somebody comes in with a problem and they're like, I don't think we can fix this. I think this is a mess. I don't think I can retire. Sometimes they can't, but sometimes it's like, oh, wait just a minute. And after we work our magic, they can. And we're able to show them ways to make their money last longer. And that's a pretty rewarding thing. You see, our capacity to solve the problem is much larger than they knew of. And so just like Kevin Kelly said, we should be optimistic because our capacity to solve problems is large. Well, you can be optimistic because you know us. And we know retirement. We know taxes. We know how to arrange your affairs to maximize retirement income and minimize taxes paid so your money lasts as long as possible, in many cases, all the way to age 100. And when we talk about retirement confidence, we could also use the word retirement optimism. Life is too long. If you're going to retire and live another 30 years, you know how old people get kind of grumpy, Ralph?
Sure.
It's easy to get grumpy as you get older. You know, your bones hurt a little more and you wonder what all these young people are doing. What are the young whippersnappers done? Well, I'm trying hard, and it is an effort, but I'm trying hard to remain an optimistic, bright person. And I think that that's the way we should approach retirement. Here's the way I look at it, Ralph. You should look forward to the future because you're going to spend the rest of your life there.
You will. two of Barry's basic concepts, folks, are protecting your principal and also making sure your money would last if your retirement has you living to age 100. There's a couple of the main things we always talk about. So get with Barry, and that phone number to call, you can text visit today or leave a message. Text visit, but the number is 417-200-3500, 200-3500 for the Wealth Care Corporation. And whether it's your uncertainty about the rising prices, rising costs, putting a squeeze on your budget and your bank account, these tax increases in 2026 we have coming, the threat of a recession anytime now, whether there's another huge financial storm brewing on the horizon, we can't stop the storms. You look at these tornadoes on the news, you can't stop them. You can just watch them and batten down the hatches and hope it blows over. But we can help put strategies in place to navigate around them, can't we, Barry?
You know, Ralph, it's interesting that you mentioned the tornadoes. The process that we use has me drawing a tornado on the whiteboard on my office wall every time I meet with a new client. One of the things we do is we talk about the storms that come, and we illustrate those storms hitting your house by drawing a picture of a house in a tornado. And then we turn that house into an economic tool. And it's how we help people understand risk and think about how much money they want to keep protected down in the basement and how much money they might be willing to put up on the roof where the storms might get to it. And so it's just interesting to me that you mentioned storms and tornadoes, because we have tornadoes in my office every day as I draw them on the board.
Right. Yeah. We've seen too many of them on the news. I hope this all blows over. And, we will hit a place, friends, like hopefully in your retirement, you're living in retirement, where it's going to be calm and peaceful. And it's exactly the way you planned it. And that's what we want for you out there. So once again, Barry's number is 417-200-3500. Well, some of the things in history. Are you a big history buff, Barry?
I don't know if I'm a history buff, but I like history. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. 1877, right about now in May, Rutherford B. Hayes had the first phone put in the White House. That might have been a big mistake. May of 1940, Winston Churchill became Britain's prime minister, going on through World War II. 1965, Warren Buffett gained a controlling interest in Berkshire Hathaway during this month of May in 65. The shares were trading back then at less than $20 per share at that time. So it's a lot more than that. And by the way, I got to mention as we go on to our next topic here, Barry, I just saw Warren with the Berkshire Hathaway. The shareholders meeting was televised on CNBC, and the whole country could watch the shareholders meeting. And Warren is 93 now. He'll be 94 in August, and was making decisions about where do we go with electric vehicles? Are we, not wanting to invest a whole lot? We don't know where that's going, or let's sell more of our shares of Apple. So, hopefully he'll live to be 100, but he's 93. He's still running the place.
That's really amazing when you think about it. I think maybe Joe Biden is watching him, and it gives Biden hope. So I wish Warren would tone it down just a little bit. They call Warren the Oracle of Omaha.
Yes.
And it occurs to me, if I do this job well enough for long enough, maybe they'll call me the Sage of Springfield. I don't know.
We could start that right now.
I could be the Oracle of the Ozarks. Ooh, I like that one.
Oh, that's even better.
Maybe we should start incorporating that. Now we go to the Oracle of the Ozarks. Hey, let me tell you something. You mentioned Winston Churchill a moment ago.
Yes.
Ralph, have you ever been to Fulton, Missouri, to the Churchill Museum and the church up there?
I just went. I saw some relatives in Washington, Missouri.
Yeah.
When I say I'm going to Washington, really, Washington, Missouri. It's just a little southwest of St. Louis. So I went to go see them in Washington. I was by myself. We went to a Cardinals game and all that. So coming back over, I stopped in Fulton. I went down to the college and I stood in that gymnasium and said, wow, boy, to be in here when Winston Churchill was speaking. So, yeah, it's with me loving history, I'm just in awe of Westminster College and was being there and saw the photographs of when that all happened. That was March of 1946. He came to Fulton, Missouri.
Some folks may not know that the word Iron Curtain, the phrase Iron Curtain, was first uttered in Fulton, Missouri by Winston Churchill as he gave a speech there at Westminster College. So anyway, if you're looking for a good day trip, make a run up to Fulton. And there's a museum there, and they brought a church from England block by block and reassembled it.
Did.
And that hosts the museum. It's just a great trip. for the day is to go up to Fulton and tour all the Churchill stuff. So you mentioned it. I just thought I'd toss that out. It's a great way to spend some time. And if you're retired, hopefully you got time to do fun things like that.
Absolutely. And he gave the speech there, as we mentioned, May 1940, he was put in office. By 46, he was out. He had been the retired, deposed prime minister coming to Fulton, along with President Harry Truman. And then by 1951, Winston Churchill was back in. So in and out and in. And like with Donald Trump, we'll see if he'll be in and out and in, but it's happened before.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that Donald Trump winds up being as heralded as Winston Churchill. He's going to have to really do some work, probably, but that would be wonderful. Hey, I've got another thing though that I want to mention. Since we're talking about travel stuff, that could be a really, really great trip for someone. If you like old churches, and I like church. I like all kinds of churches, but I like old churches too. And I don't know, Ralph, have you ever been in St. Louis to the Cathedral Basilica St. Louis?
I have not. I'll have to put that on my list.
Well,
the only cathedral I've been to is Busch Stadium.
Well, if you will go on the Central West End to the Cathedral Basilica St. Louis, big tall spire. You can see it from a long way away. That's the first way I ever got there is I just drove to that tall spire. And when I got there, it's like, oh, it's this big Catholic church. It is beautiful, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. It's worth your time to go in and tour and find somebody who will tell you the story of all the art that's in it. It is a gorgeous, it rivals anything in Europe. I just can't speak fondly enough of the Cathedral Basilica St. Louis. And I got a funny story I have to tell you. It doesn't relate to finance, but it might help. So they were telling me this is the home church for the Archbishop of St. Louis, the Cardinal. This is his home church. And so one guy was
another Cardinal.
Different Cardinal, slightly different. So they were telling me that the Cardinal, he had on his vestments one day, his fancy robe, and he was wearing all of the chains and necklaces that they wear, and he had to go somewhere really quickly, and so he didn't have time to change clothes, so he leaves wearing all of his vestments, and he had to stop by the bank. So he stops by the bank, and he goes up to the teller there at the bank window, and the young girl just right out of high school, she looks at him and she says, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Where'd you get your bling?" And he said, "My boss gave it to me."
Right.
So I first thought that was really funny. And then here's my follow-up to that. I said, well, she's a Baptist, because she wasn't used to the bling. Being a kind of a Baptist myself, we're not used to wearing very much bling. So I just thought that was a funny story about what she had said to the Archbishop, not recognizing him. Where did you get that?
Oh, that's great. That's great. And some great stories of things over the summer, places to visit in Missouri, including the Ozarks and that Thunder Ridge Nature Arena and Silver Dollar City, too. Barry, time to take a little break for the news, and we'll get back more of our discussion next half hour. Don't go away. 401ks and IRAs and your decisions about those. This is Ralph Hipp along with Jay Barry Watts. You're listening to Watts on Wealth. We'll be back on the other side of this break.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
Barry and I are delighted you're with us for the radio show Watts on Wealth every Sunday right here. And be sure to watch us during the week on KY3 and a lot more information from Barry on the TV side. Well, on to our main discussion today of 401ks and IRAs, as millions of us have our retirement money in something like an IRA, that individual retirement account, or a 401k through the company. As a whole, American retirement assets are more than $32 trillion, and over half of it, over $19 trillion, is in IRAs and defined contribution plans. Barry, why should we have our money in an IRA?
Well, obviously, IRAs are helpful vehicles because of the tax consequences of an IRA account. So when you're going to save, first of all, you need to save. You need a vehicle to save. You need an encouragement to save. And the advent of the IRA or 401k was a way to do that. So I encourage you to participate in those plans. Now, what you need to think about is what the taxes are going to look like, because how the taxes are handled when that money comes out can impact your life in retirement. And you need to learn about those things. You can learn here on our show, watching our TV show, reading our books, or you can, go out in YouTube land and learn. By the way, we've got a lot of videos out there as well. If you look for What's on Wealth on YouTube. But it's important that you be paying attention. But I like the IRA as an important tool for you.
Now, it's not just one or the other. As we get into some options for the accounts, you need to understand, folks, the type of 401k or IRA you have really matters when it comes to how your retirement income will be taxed, right, Barry?
Oh, that's absolutely right. So, we spend all these years just putting money away, and it's like there's just a big bucket, and we're throwing our money into that big bucket, and that's our bucket for the future. And people tell us that when we retire, we'll be in a lower tax bracket in the future. Now, I think that's bad information. I don't think that's true. Most of my clients are not in a lower tax bracket when they retire. They're in the same tax bracket or sometimes an increasing bracket. And by the way, starting in 2026, everybody's brackets are going to increase. So you have to know, what is the tax story going to be on my retirement income when I'm taking money out of that bucket in the future? So there's two types of IRA 401k accounts. There are pre-tax accounts where you get a tax break for putting the money in there. And that's the bait to get you to put it in. But beware, if you take that bait now and you get a tax break today, you may actually pay more tax in the future when you take that out. So you got to know how that's going to go down. And if you don't know how to figure that out, that's what we do at the Wealthcare Corporation. On the other side of the coin, there are accounts that are 401k and IRA accounts that are Roth accounts. And Roth accounts are where you don't get a tax break today, but the money grows tax-free and you can take it out tax-free in the future. And when you take it out, it won't have any negative impact on the taxation of Social Security. It won't have any negative impact on IRMA, what you pay for your Medicare. And so I like those post-tax accounts that grow tax-free. And for those of you who can't fit those in a Roth account for some reason or the other, there's always what we call the LIRP account, the Life Insurance Retirement Account, that is also a tax-free vehicle. Casually, sometimes we talk about that as being a Roth with no limitations. And that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but it works in much the same way. So that's something else that people ought to know about.
Well, I would surmise, Barry, that word surmise, fancy word for, I would think, that people around the Ozarks, we don't know the rules for taking money out of these accounts. That's why we called you, and it's 417-200-3500 to call Barry. What are the rules for taking money out of these? What do we need to know, especially, Barry, when we're taking money out for these RMDs, these required minimum distributions?
Well, I had a lady call just this week, Ralph, who had watched us on the TV show, and she told me she had never heard all the things I said about taxes, and she literally said, RMD, I've never heard of an RMD. Well, as it turned out, she didn't have any money in an IRA, so I wouldn't have expected that she would have heard of an RMD necessarily. But the RMD stands for Required Minimum Distribution. And for years, that has been something that was triggered at age 70 and a half. And the reason it was triggered is because the government looks at you at age 70 and a half, Ralph. You're close. And the government says, hey, Ralph, you're going to die someday, and we don't want you to die without paying your taxes. So you better start taking that money out and paying the taxes now. So they force you to make distributions. Now, after COVID, there were some acts of Congress, the Secure Act 1, Secure Act 2, that changed the age. So 70 and a half no longer matters. RMDs have been changed to 72. If you were born in the 1950s, your RMD hits you at 72. If you're born in the 1960s, like me, your RMD doesn't happen until age 73. And so when I'm 73 years old, whether I want to or not, I will be forced to take money out of my IRA accounts. And when that happens, the government controls not only when you take it out, because now they force you to do it, they control the amount you take out because there's a minimum that they assign that you must take out, and they control the tax rate at which you must pay taxes on the money that comes out. So RMDs can be a really big deal because of the impact they can have on your retirement income.
When you're talking, Barry, alarm bells were going off in my head. You didn't hear them, but I heard them. I'm going to be 72 in 2026 when the tax laws change. So I've got to get all that going for me. If you're my age, if you're 70 like me, 2026 and that 72 RMD, that's going to hit at the same time. So I'm really going to be listening as we get closer to that. But we have the issues to address when we talk about taking money out of the accounts and the taxes that apply when we withdraw income. And talk to me, Barry, about the penalties that also could apply if we don't follow these rules. What do we retirees need to know about the penalties?
So when RMD time comes, if you miss your RMD because you got busy, because you were sick in the hospital, because you just didn't want to deal with it. I had a lady this week. I had a professor from Missouri State University in the office this week who hasn't filed an income tax return since 2018 because she just didn't want to deal with it.
Wow.
I'm like, no, you can't do that. And she said, well, I know. That's why I'm here. And I'm like, well, we'll help you. But you have to deal with these things. So if you just don't want to deal with your RMD and you fail to make it, here's how it works. You get taxed, not only the ordinary tax you have to pay, but you get a penalty of 25%. So think about it this way for a moment. If your required minimum distribution is $10,000 and you happen to be in the 30% tax bracket, let's say, well, obviously you're going to pay $3,000 in taxes. But if you fail to make the distribution until after the deadline, then what happened is you get an extra 25% penalty. So that'd be another $2,500 added to the $3,000. Now you've paid $5,500 in taxes on a $10,000 distribution. That's 55% gone to Uncle Sam. That's a pretty high tax rate. And so you can't afford to miss your distributions. And one of the things that we do for our clients at WealthCare is we keep up with this and notify our clients and make sure that they make their distributions. If they don't make them, it's not because we didn't yell and scream and jump up and down and say, distribute, distribute, distribute. You got to make your RMD. So you want to be sure that your advisor is helping you with that they've got a plan for that. And you have to be aware as you make these RMDs, Ralph, that the money's forced out to you. You don't get a choice on it. And that can push you into a higher tax bracket. So if we're going to manage taxes in retirement, we want to avoid being pushed into a higher tax bracket. It also can trigger higher taxes on Social Security. In fact, some people don't have to pay tax on Social Security until they make their required minimum distributions, and then they have to pay tax. And it can cause you to pay more and more on your Medicare premiums. So these are things that can be affected by an RMD if you haven't managed it. What we try to do is help people start managing that RMD back in their 60s. So we're taking income sometimes before we really need it, because right now tax rates are lower. We've got room left in our tax bracket, so it's not going to cost us any higher tax rate to go ahead and take that money now and reposition it into tax-free accounts to be used later on in our retirement life.
Barry, I've always wanted to ask you before we get back into this conversation, can we make an RMD to our church? Is that a good place to distribute to?
Well, yes, it is. Now, technically at that moment, it's not called an RMD. It substitutes for the RMD. It's a qualified charitable distribution.
Okay.
And you can give up to $100,000 a year direct from your IRA. Now, here's why you would want to do that. If you are a tither, and let's just say, to keep it easy, that you're giving $10,000 a year to your church.
Okay.
Well, but it works if you're giving $2,000, whatever the number is. If you're giving $10,000 a year, well, the way most of us do it is just write a check, drop it in the plate. Instead, well, when you do that, if you write a $10,000 check and drop it in the plate, you had to earn $13,000 to pay the taxes, and then you've got $10,000 left after taxes to drop in the plate. So the church only got $10,000. A better way to do that, if you've got money in your IRA and you have reached age 70 and a half, because this is only eligible for people who are 70 and a half. A better way to do that is to actually send the money directly from your IRA account to your church or to your temple, your synagogue. And when you send it, then no tax is withheld. So you just have to send $10,000. You don't have to take out $13,000 in order to send 10. You just send $10,000. And what did that $10,000 cost you? Well, actually, if that's money that's been riding in your IRA for 30 or 40 years, it probably only cost you $2,000, and it's grown to that $10,000 amount. So that is a way to make your charitable contribution, but make it far less expensively. That's a great question you asked, Ralph, and I'm really glad you brought it up.
I've always wanted to have you go over that, especially on a Sunday morning. So I think we're in good stead with the big man.
Yeah, that is good. I'm glad. I had forgotten we were broadcasting here on Sunday morning. So here's something else to think about with regard to that is if your advisor isn't bringing that to your attention, well, then are you getting the right advice? These are the kinds of things that we're constantly putting in front of our clients to help them make sure that they pay the minimum tax possible in retirement.
You know, with this idea we just talked about of donating to your church in the place of an RMD to get with Barry. Barry, what's your phone number over there at the WealthCare Corporation?
Well, you can call us at WealthCare at 417-200-3500. 417-200-3500 and call today. Now, if you call today, because we're not in the office this morning, actually, because
you are in church.
That's exactly right. And so you'll get a voicemail. You can leave a voicemail there, and somebody will call you back first thing tomorrow, and they will schedule a time for us to talk either on the phone or here in our office. Some people schedule one way, some people schedule another, and we'll try to help you with whatever it is that you're needing. If you just call 417-200-3500. If you don't want to call and leave a message, just text the word VISIT, VISIT, to 417-200-3500. Either way will work just fine.
Very good. And hope you can stay with us, friends, for the remaining few minutes of our show before you head off to church. I'm Ralph Hipp, along with Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation of Springfield there on Ingram Mill Road. And we'll be back to conclude our program right after this.
Looking to see what Barry Watts can do for you? Just text VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at WealthCare know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the WealthCare team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500.
Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of WealthCare. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
We're discussing 401ks and IRAs with our money superstar, Barry Watts of the WealthCare Corporation. The show is Watts on Wealth. This is Ralph Hipp, your host, along with Barry, every Sunday morning on the radio. And be sure to catch us on KY3 during the week. Barry's website is Watts Wealth. I say you take the on off, Barry. WattsWealth.com is the website. What are some of the things we'd see on the website if we go in there today, let's say?
It's very complicated to keep all this straight, isn't it? Yes, the website is Watts Wealth. The show is Watts on Wealth, but the website is Watts Wealth. We're trying to buy the on, but we haven't been able to get the other two letters purchased yet.
I'd love to know. All right, who are you? Who's got the Watts on Wealth? There's only one Watts on Wealth to me anyway.
Yeah, so if you go to the website, there's just some more information about retirement on there, the kinds of things that you might be looking for. You can download our Retirement Confidence Kit there. It's got all sorts of information about the things we talk about on the show. So go to wattswealth.com, and I think you'll find a lot of information that'll be helpful.
Yeah, you can do that this afternoon for an hour or two, and glad you're with us for our hour on the radio. We're talking about IRAs and 401ks on the program today with Barry Watts. And can you kind of recap and mention a little more about withdrawal strategies for taking money out of our retirement accounts, Barry?
Well, sure. I'd be happy to, because that's what happens when you retire is you want to know, how am I going to start getting a check? And it's really humorous to me that people come in with, a couple of $1 million in some cases, and they still have this fear that they're not going to be able to get a check when they retire because they don't understand how it works. So here's the big deal about withdrawals. First of all, you need a steady check. Don't just withdraw a wad of money and put it in your bank and then live out of it like you're going to run out. Instead, you should get a check in retirement just like you got a check when you're working. Same day every month, deposited automatically into your account. And for our clients, we set that up. so that the check automatically goes out of their retirement funds into their bank account, so they know on that day of the month that they're going to have income. And then once a year, we meet and adjust that as needed. Lately, Ralph, we've had people saying, hey, Barry, I need a little bit more money because the cost of living has gone up. And so we've been able to accommodate that. But sometimes as we talk with them, when they come in for their annual checkup, if you want to call it that, with us, when they come in for their annual strategy session, sometimes we'll say, so how much income do you have? And they're like, oh, I'm saving money on what you're sending me. And they're putting a couple of $1,000s back in the bank. Whoa. That means we're sending you too much money. So we adjust it as needed is my point, because we want to keep that money invested for them, working for them. Another way you can think about it, and I don't know that this is necessarily a good idea, but you could limit your withdrawals to your income. So let's just make it easy. Say you got $1 million in the bank, and let's say you're earning 5%. Well, you're going to make $50,000 that year, so you limit your withdrawal to $50,000. But then it might not be the same amount each month. So those are kinds of things we manage. I already mentioned to you, Ralph, the idea of having buckets of money, a now bucket for this year, a soon bucket for years 2 through 4, and a later bucket for year 5 and beyond, now, soon, and later. I think that's a great strategy that helps you categorize the money that you're going to spend. Really, the best way to do this is let us do the heavy lifting for you, because we do it every day. We can get it done while you're just trying to figure out where to start, because we know how to do this analysis. Let us give you a retirement income analysis. We don't charge for that. And the reason we don't charge for that is, first of all, that little piece is not terribly hard for us to do. And we don't know whether or not we're going to be able to help you for sure or not. So we never charge till we know we're going to be able to help them. And then we also never charge until we have made it clear that they're about to be charged and everybody has agreed that's going to happen. Everybody's always afraid. Oh, I'm afraid to talk to you. I'm afraid it's going to, it's like you're going to get you're going to be snake bit or something like that.
You've got bad news for me. Stuff like that. Not going to happen. You do not have to be afraid that you're going to get a bill that you didn't expect. It won't happen. We're very clear on those things. So when it comes to retiring and having a withdrawal strategy, knowing what your income is going to look like, let us help you at the Wealth Care Corporation. Yeah, let Barry Watts and the crew lift those buckets for you. And it's 417-200-3500. Of course, you knew the 417 already, but it's 200-3500 for the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry, with the buckets and the things going on, the IRAs and 401ks, how do you help people figure out how much money do we need to pull out of these different accounts? How much money should the accounts generate?
Well, Ralph, that's not the question. That's not how we do it. Because trying to figure out how much each account generates and then pull out of that, oh my goodness, I've got a headache already thinking about it. So instead, we figure out how much are you going to need? And, we ask the famous sitting on the porch question. If you just go home from work and you sit on the porch and that's all you did, how much money needs to be deposited into your bank account every month to pay all your bills? Now, if you're going to get off the porch and drive to Branson one day and drive to St. Louis and see the Cathedral Basilica and go up to Fulton and see Winston Churchill, well, maybe you need a little bit more money. Figure out how much money you're going to need every month to live in retirement. Let us make that your automatic check, and let us figure out where to get it and how to take it out of the buckets. That's the harder work. Let us take care of it for you.
All right. And of course, Barry says, do all this right now. There's no reason to wait. Don't wait and do it right now. Great information on 401ks and IRAs and, those accounts. And what do we do with those? And how much should you save for retirement? Where should you save it? How do you make sure it'll last as long as you do? Give Barry a call. Once again, it's 417-200-3500 and get your own personal conversation going with Barry Watts and the team at the Wealth Care Corporation. We've got about 5 more minutes before we wrap up another great show here, Barry, and we want to close with some timeless advice, some words of wisdom that stand the test of time, and timeless advice for you to keep in mind for retirement as well. So I've got some quotes for you, Barry. I want to give you a quote and how this might relate to financial decisions. And we have the great, we Ralphs need to stick together. Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, the desire of gold is not for gold. It is for the means of freedom and benefit. What does this tell you about how we should think about our money for retirement?
Well, there is a lot of wisdom in that quote.
I love that quote.
And we really need to dial in and think about that wisdom for just a moment, Ralph. People, and it's interesting that it centers around the topic of gold, actually. And of course, he's using that as a metaphor for money. But people have got gold on their mind, primarily because on these doggone radio stations, there are all kinds of ads saying, buy gold, buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. We'll help you buy gold. And I've had, in the past 2 weeks, had 2 different people call to talk to me, one of whom had gold and a lot of it, like his portfolio was probably 90% gold. And oh, Lord, that is a mistake. Now, we've got gold in our portfolios right now, I think about 15% maybe. But sometimes we don't have any gold. And we really hardly ever have more than about 15%. So gold is a tool just like anything else. But on the radio, you've got all these people trying to sell you gold. Call us and put your IRA in gold. That is balderdash baloney. Don't do that. Gold is that's like somebody saying, if you really want a great meal, call us and we'll send you nothing but black pepper. Well, black pepper can make your meal, but black pepper isn't a meal in and of itself. So don't be going all gold. Now, I had another lady call me the other day, and she said, well, I just have to tell you before we start our talk, she said, my friends at church have told me that I shouldn't talk to you because you're just going to try to sell me gold. So you're not going to sell me gold, are you? No, ma'am. What? we're not going to try to sell you gold. So gold is a tool, but we don't want to overuse it. And those people who are trying to get you to do that on the radio, they're just gold salesmen. That's all they have. So what Emerson is saying about gold is, he said it's a means of freedom and benefit. Well, that's a way to think about your retirement. Whatever you have saved in money, it's simply to purchase you the freedom to spend your days as you want with the people you want, doing what you want. The objective isn't to have a lot of money. The objective is to spend your days as you want with the people you want, doing what you want. Ralph, I gotta narc out my dad here a little bit. Jim is a son of the Depression. And Jim and Cheryl, they're kind of tighter than the bark on a log. They brag on how much they can save out of their Social Security checks most months. Well, we got Dad and convinced him to go with us on a trip to cruise the Rhine River. And those trips don't come cheap, and they don't come cheap when you're 81 years old, and he turned 81 last week. And they don't come cheap when you say 81-year-old guys can't ride back there in those rough seats. They need to be up here in the front of the plane where it's kind of cushy. And so, we had to say, Dad, what good is it to die with this money? I think instead you ought to come spend every day with me for a week riding on the Rhine River. And one of our cousins is going on the trip too, doing what you want, seeing things that you've never seen before. So I don't want to die with a bunch of money. What does that accomplish? It's about life and experience and relationships and family. The purpose of retirement money is to purchase you the freedom to spend your days as you want with the people you want, doing what you want. And that's what Ralph Waldo Emerson was trying to teach us.
Exactly. And Barry, we've wrapped up another great hour. Do you have any golden wisdom you want to share with our friends? And everything you said about your dad is right on target. That's why we're doing this show, why you're doing what you're doing. Any final thoughts from you, Barry, before you head off to the Rhine River?
Well, Ralph, I've got all kinds of thoughts to share. I don't know which one of them is the gold that you ought to hear. I sure love my dad and my mama. Yeah, Dad has given me a lot of wisdom over the years. Some of it I can repeat on the radio. Other parts of it I can't, as you will guess.
That's right.
I think the best advice that I most consistently hear, though, is always drink upstream from the herd.
Indeed. And we know what that means. We know exactly what you're talking about. Hey, Barry, safe travels. We'll get together again soon. Friends, join us every Sunday, though, on the radio right here through the Miracle of Radio. More Barry Watts next weekend. And that's it for Watts on Wealth. This is Ralph Hipp, along with Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation of Springfield. Barry, let me give that number one more time, and it's 417-200-3500. You can call and text them anytime. Barry, always a pleasure, sir.
Good talking with you today.
You too. And good to have you listening. Join us again next time.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.